This content is brought to you in part by Real Marketing, the only marketing firm recommended exclusively by the Institute. Real Marketing utilizes over 25 years of expertise, and their products are built and customized for you to dominate any neighborhood, anywhere. Go to realmarketing4u.com. That's realmarketing4u.com. Also, look for past A State of Mind episodes with CEO David Collins as our guest. Welcome. Today, I have the real treat of spending a little time with you and my friend and colleague, Liz Heinkel. We are fortunate to both work in the St. Petersburg, Florida market, and I have really appreciated watching Liz, and I really wanted to give her an opportunity to share some of the things that make her business model successful. So, Liz, tell us about the journey of when you were first in real estate and then how you came back to it.
Well, I grew up in a real estate family like you did, Tami, in that my mother sold real estate to get us 6 children through college. So she started out as a secretary in an office, and she saw that the agents doing very well, and she got her license. And so I remember helping her put her books together back before MLS was online. And then after college, I thought that it would be something fun to do. So I got my license and worked for a large organization. And I'm from Mississippi. So this was actually in Mandeville, Louisiana. And this is many years ago. This is in the early 80s. Fast forward, I moved, I got married, moved, had kids, let my license lapse, went through the homemaker chapter of my life, and then taking care of adult family members. And then my husband said, so now what are you going to do? And I was probably early 50s. And I said, I think I'm going to go get my real estate license again. And that's what I did. I think it's about 9 years ago now. It was interesting. And what I told you, Tami, is that the class and the test and the subject matter were all in the same. I remembered it. So it wasn't difficult for me to pass on the first time and get my license and put it with the same major company that I had been with, years ago. And then I figured out the hardest part was now everything was online.
Yeah, Liz, it's something that people ask me a lot. Should I change brokerage? Should I go to a big one? Should I go to a small one? Should I go to one with a luxury flag? And you shared with me that what you really were looking for was support and some presence in the luxury marketplace. And what kind of support was it that you found most helpful?
The larger company, there were so many agents and they would have their weekly meetings, but I needed some one-on-one training. And so the company that I had gone with didn't have that capacity. And let me segue to say that if you're an agent that is new and you don't have the knowledge, Tami, go with a larger company or a brokerage that does have that daily training as your entree into the business, because you'll get a whole new education. There's a couple of larger companies out there that do the business coaching, and they have them in their offices daily. So I would look for someone like that. I went with a company that did not have that one-on-one. So when I fended for myself for 6 months, I decided I can't do this anymore. And someone said, well, hey, you need to go here. You have a luxury brand. That's your niche. And there's a 10-person marketing team, and they will help you to get set up. And so that's what I did. But I do have to brag about Tami, because I went into the office with Tami, Sharon, and Rob. And so the first 2 years with the company I'm with now, I was always in their office, and they were great mentors to me. And I really appreciate that, Tami.
So thank you for saying that. And it's actually something that I wanted to point out, because one of the things that I admire is that you are not afraid to ask for help.
That's right.
You were absolutely brazen, walked in and said, "I need your help." And do you think that getting that kind of mentorship gave you the confidence, right? Because we've got the process of real estate. And in a minute, we're going to talk about the sphere of influence, right? How you right. Put yourself forward, but it's that confidence piece. Do you think that played into it?
That's important. Yeah. If you're not confident in yourself and you do not display the confidence, then people aren't going to be confident in your ability. You have, and so it's important when you start to get to lay the groundwork, which is knowledge, which is whether it's your sphere, like knowledge. For instance, Tami and I work in the downtown St. Pete market. The knowledge of every building in downtown and the history of the growth of the downtown is critical. People want to know that you know, and then they feel they will trust you to guide them with their choices.
So that's a perfect segue into exploring a little bit about how you built your sphere of influence, particularly coming back into this. You didn't have 20 years of experience, and we're in a marketplace just like any other where there are lots of seasoned professionals, right? There's a lot of competition. And so how did you approach building your sphere of influence that in turn has led to the success that you have experienced?
I believe that for me and my husband, when we moved to St. Petersburg, we had been there already, 10 years, and we had built a network of friends, and we are also very community minded. I think it's important too that if you're going to work, if you're going to live in a community, then find something you're passionate about to give back to. So for instance, for us, we were moving into a city where we didn't know anyone. So what we initially did is we joined things. We joined Sun Coasters. Tami, you know what that is. We joined Tiger Bay Club, which is a political organization that's local. We joined the Yacht Club. We joined the Minoy. Within a year, we had so many friends. There are people that had lived there since high school. And they're like, gosh, so many people. I can't believe it, because we got involved. So if you want to build a sphere, you have to get involved. You can't just hole up in your house or your condo. And when I say get involved, give back. My husband, we joined the Rotary Club. That's a business networking organization. And I do want to caution you with over joining, and don't join with the intention of business. Business can't be your primary focus. If you're going to join a community organization, you join something you're passionate about, that you want to give back to and get to know the people. And that's another thing. It's the connections. It's the connection with the people in those organizations. And if you join something that you're interested in, then you're going to be in a club or a group that's like-minded, and with other, you're with other like-minded people. So originally, Tami, there were a couple of Rotarians that reached out to me to sell their house. So
and it happens over time, right? It's not something that happens immediately. It's the connection, and then also the fact that they know that you follow through, that you
Yes.
are active, and that you're not there just looking for business.
Mhm.
So I also feel strongly about that. And interestingly, when you talk about Rotary in particular, I happen to know that you just completed a term as president of the Rotary Club.
Mm.
And most of that term of your presidency was during COVID. So you were meeting by Zoom. And Rotary is among those organizations where being in that face to face networking environment is so crucial to the relationships. And I wonder if you'll share your thoughts about what it what it was to shift to that not in person ability, especially as it relates to fostering those relationships and creating new ones.
That is a good question. And when I took over in July, we were still on Zoom and we had hopes of starting back live in the fall. And but before then, what we had to, think outside the box, if you will. So the program's chair, which is the president-elect, had to find engaging speakers that the members would want to get online to hear. And we would play games like we would do the weekly Zoom, and it looked like, the Hollywood squares. Although
Yeah,
we would always have about 40 members on. But it was nice because you could talk to one another face to face. It quite frankly, it was almost nicer. You were in the environment of your own home. You were eating your own food, so you weren't paying for a lunch, and you still were able to communicate with people. And you could use chat if you needed to ask questions about who knows of someone that does such and such. And then we would have our presentation, and then we would do online socials. We have a travel agent in our club, and she did one social where it was a Zoom presentation to Hawaii, and then they had one to Alaska with the Coast Guard. So we found ways to make Zoom fun and helpful. We did training classes to teach the older members how to do it. And we only had one or two members that literally could not connect because they didn't
sure.
have a computer.
So you definitely got to demonstrate your leadership abilities
Ugh.
and your negotiating skills in managing that. I want to shift to, you mentioned the niche, the downtown niche,
Yes.
and with tons of competition and not a lot of inventory, typically, you have made a really strong place for yourself that has actually resulted in several record-setting sales. And so, is there something that you can point back to that was the trigger for developing that niche, or for then snowballing into the book of business that you have now?
Yes. And I learned a lot of it from the Luxury Institute, quite frankly, because it's important to write your thank you notes, personal touches. So with the clients I have, or the friends and associates, past clients that refer people to me, I always send them a thank you note, and give them a personal phone call. Thank you. This worked out. We're going to close on such and such. So I always keep them in the loop. It's important to keep that personal touch. That is the most important thing. You can spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars sending out postcards every month to a sphere. But if you're not actively engaged in that sphere, I don't care how much money you spend. People aren't going to hire you if they've never heard about you, through people in that sphere. For me, it was important to grow that personal touch in the downtown sphere A, because I love it. I just love it. And B, because that's just, I set my intention. That was the other thing. Set your intention. Do you want to be in, maybe you don't want to farm where you live. You may want to farm where your office is. Then start participating in events out there. Start going to the beach.
Yeah.
Start frequenting the restaurants.
You've referenced back to the passion in a couple of different avenues. First, the organizations that you've chosen to join and the social groups that you've chosen to join were because you were passionate about those things. And then you discovered a passion for your niche market in the downtown condo world. And so that resonates with me, that you find something that you really feel strongly about, and that kind of takes root. And I also know we've talked before, particularly as it relates to the importance of building your sphere of influence. We've talked before about the fact that it's not online leads. It's not paying for those sorts of things. It's really focusing all of your efforts on growing your sphere.
Growing your sphere, networking, taking people to lunch, having coffee with them. And I got to tell you, I'm married, and that's hard sometimes, because you could be out every night of the week doing that. Our broker used to say, don't eat alone, don't drink alone. Well, sometimes you need a break. So you got to kind of be selective, maybe pick, kind of block your week. That's another thing, time blocking, because we're always going in umpteen different directions to try this. I work on Sunday night, usually, maybe first thing Monday morning, with, okay, what does my week look like? And block out the various times for personal connections, letter writing, seeing properties on the market. I have a notebook on my phone, the notebooks on your phone, one that says buyers and one that says a folder with buyers, a folder with sellers. So I go through those every morning. Okay, where am I with this buyer? Where am I with this seller? And I will interject one thing here, because your list can get long, and sometimes you get busy and you might not look at it for a week. And one of them may fall out off the radar, or you don't resonate with them. So, that happens. Don't beat yourself up. I used to beat myself up all the time when a buyer would go elsewhere because I didn't resonate with them. And you know what? I believe that it's all meant to be, that if you keep focused on what you're doing and what you love, don't look at what this neighbor is doing or this agent's doing over here, because Tami's right. When I first started, there were a lot of big name downtown agents, but I worked with, the one at Ocean View Drive, a friend of mine, I knew her from a social setting, this lady that owned this house. A friend of mine told her to call me, didn't know that I was that listing was my first big listing.
And what was the price on that? It was just over 2 million, wasn't it?
And started at 2.2.
And that was another example of Liz not being afraid to reach out for help. So my family team co-listed that with her. We utilized Institute resources, absolutely, as you say, but it was getting that one under the belt, and then that catapults you. Now,
it did.
I have had the pleasure of visiting many of your listings downtown, and in particular, you developed a stronghold, if you will, in one of the newer buildings that is arguably the most expensive downtown condo building overall, right? Which is, kind of a really big deal. And do you have a favorite of the downtown condos, maybe even one in that building. Do you have a favorite of the one of the listings that you sold?
Well, the building that you're talking about is my favorite. I've sold 6 units in there, and interestingly enough, on that one, it was the first break came with the first listing, which was a friend of mine that I grew to know through an organization downtown, and we got to know one another. And so then she started talking to me, and she worked with a very well-known agent downtown, and then they started asking me to show them property. So I started showing them property. Now, this is before they wanted to list, and we're talking about a $3.3 million listing. They wanted to scale out of that building and go to a smaller unit and cash in on the unit. So I started showing them property, and they could see my expertise. We didn't find something then, but one of the times we were sitting at another condo that they were looking at to scale down, and we're sitting at the table because I like to get people to sit down. I like to get people either at the kitchen table or sit down to look out at a view so that they're not constantly in motion, that they're actually going to focus on you. And I asked him I asked him if he wanted to list his condo. And he said, yeah, but we normally use so-and-so. And I said, I know you do, but I want you to consider me. And he said, well, why should we consider you? And so I verbally told him a few things. And you have to be willing to negotiate too. And that's the nice thing about where we work. Our broker is very good about allowing us to negotiate our own terms. And I knew that if I were to concede to him in the short term, that it would be a long-term gain. And I got the listing. We sold it before we actually got it on the market. And from there, the next listing was that penthouse unit. And the owner called me out of the blue. I did not know her, but she was referred to me because she knew that was the last sale, and it had been the only sale in the building in a year or so. I mean, because they don't come up very often because there's only 44 units in this building.
In the building, yeah.
Yeah, in the building because they're bigger. And so she called me out of the blue in January. And that one we started it at $7.1 million, somewhere around there. Highest price ever in the Tri-County area, because this was a couple of years ago. And I didn't want to lose the listing, but I didn't want to price it that high. But the husband wanted it to be done. And I did a Tami and Sharon little trick. I said, okay, I will agree to this for 30 days. So I did. We had no showings. And in 30 days, I asked for a price reduction to what I thought was reasonable. And the wife said, see, I told you. Yes. And so we lowered the rate, lowered the price, started getting showings, and it sold in 4 months, which I was like, oh my God. Then I said a prayer because it was like, oh my God. It was good.
Awesome. It has been absolutely delightful to watch because your passion is evident, and it really goes back to one of the principles that we talk about in the Institute, in that it's about confidence and competence. And the more that you build your competencies, the confidence comes naturally. And then finding that niche of where you absolutely want to be, stick to the plan. I love the old school tactics of looking at your list of buyers and sellers every day, figuring out how you need to connect with them, planning time for being with people, right? I love that. And so I wish you continued success. And I can't wait to see the next fabulous condo that you're going to sell in that building. So, with that, I'm going to bid everybody goodbye. Thanks to Liz for spending some time with me today. And we look forward to hearing all of your successes.
I thank you. Thank you for your time.